Hey there, K-Korner family! It's your host, Crown, back again with some more incredible stories that'll make you laugh, think, and maybe even shake your head in disbelief. Whether you're here for the first time or you're a returning member of our community, get ready for a ride through tales of unexpected twists, outrageous encounters, and heartwarming moments. So grab your favorite snack, settle in, and let's dive into today's adventures. And remember, life is full of stories, and we're here to share the best of them with you. My dad is from Eastern Germany and was born in the 60s, so he spent his whole childhood and youth and the beginning of his adulthood in this country. Part of becoming an adult in Eastern Germany was that every young man had to serve a certain time in the army. There was the opportunity to do the unarmed service, but there was no option out. It was literally serve or go to jail. Also, doing unarmed service came with a ton of stigma, so most people just did the normal thing. Since my dad wanted to study theology and become a pastor, he absolutely was against the system he lived in, his government, their army, and the thought of shooting. But he did the normal service anyway, not because of the stigma, but to be able to relate to the men he'd be responsible as a pastor. So, to the army he went. Now the guys there already knew he wanted to study theology, which wasn't completely forbidden, but it was looked down upon and came with some difficulties. So the officers didn't like him very much. A few weeks in, my dad got stopped by an officer who then proceeded to berate him that his hair was too long, that he looked like a hippie, forbidden Western influence, and that it didn't look tidy, and that he should go to the hairdresser as soon as possible to have his hair cut so it would fit the regulations. Dad didn't argue, although his hair wasn't really too long. He just asked for a copy of said regulations so he could make absolutely sure that his next haircut would fit. They gave him one. Standard was that the soldiers had a normal-looking haircut, so they wouldn't look like the soldiers of enemy number one, the USA. This was in the 80s, so Cold War and everything. However, that wasn't specified in the regulations. The regulations only specified a maximum length for the hair of the soldiers and a certain distance around the ears that should be hair-free. Of course, my dad noticed that. He went to the hairdresser as soon as he could, told him how much space he needed to clear around his ears, and then told him to give him a buzz cut. A short buzz cut, like an American soldier. They hesitated at first, but they did it, and my dad put his hat back on and returned to his army base. The officer who had told him to get a haircut was pleased, until my dad took off his hat. It must have been glorious. He and every other officer on the base was absolutely furious, but they couldn't do anything. Couldn't punish him, couldn't make him grow his hair back, nothing. The haircut fit the regulations to the letter. My dad is a stubborn man, so he spent the rest of his service time walking around the army base looking like an American in a wrong uniform. It all started on one beautiful day, perfect for my new project, making YouTube videos about food at different restaurants. I was excited as I drove to the first place on my list. Hi everyone! Today we're trying out this popular restaurant downtown. Let's see if their food is really good. I said to my camera, feeling good about myself. When I walked in, the place smelled great, like grilled meats and spices. It was busy, which usually means the food is good, and I ordered their special dish and sat near a window for better light for my video. This is a great spot for filming, I thought, setting up my camera. As I ate, talking about the taste to my viewers, a big waiter came up to me. He looked serious and a bit angry. "Excuse me, are you taking one of our plates?" he asked, pointing in my bag where I had put my own plate for the video. It was a branded plate, a special thing that I decided to include in my channel. "No, this is my plate. I brought it with me." "You're stealing our plate." "I promise you it's mine," I told him, showing him my plate, but he didn't believe me. Despite my repeated assurances, the waitress' suspicion didn't wane. "That plate is ours, and you were trying to steal it." Right about now, the last thing I wanted was a confrontation, especially with my camera rolling. "Look, I can prove it's mine," I said calmly, reaching into my bag to pull out another similar plate I brought for such comparisons in my reviews. "See, I have a set of these." The waiter looked at the second plate but shook his head. "It could be another stolen one for all I know." I was flabbergasted. Here I was trying to make a fun and informative video about this restaurant, and instead, I was being accused of theft. I turned the camera to capture the interaction, hoping it might make the waiter back off. I'm filming a food review. I am not here to steal anything. I explained, gesturing to my camera setup. Customers around us began to take notice, but this was not the kind of attention I wanted. Sir, I'm just doing my job. We've had issues with theft before. I tried a different approach. Can I speak to a manager? Maybe they can clear this up. Fine, I'll get the manager. But don't think about leaving. He warned before turning and heading towards the kitchen. As he left, I hope the manager will be more understanding. I turned to my camera, offering a sheepish smile. Well, folks, this is certainly more exciting than I bargained for in a food review. I joked, trying to lighten the mood. While waiting for the manager, I continued my review, focusing on the remaining food on my plate. I talked about the spices, the texture, and the overall taste, trying to bring the focus back to the review. A few minutes later, the manager arrived. She was a middle-aged woman. I heard there is a misunderstanding about a plate. She began looking between me and the waiter. Yes, I brought my own plate for the review and your waiter thinks I'm trying to steal it. The manager examined my plates and then gave me a small, apologetic smile. I see, these don't look like our plates. I am sorry for the confusion, she said, turning to the waiter. He is not stealing. Let him continue his review. The waiter looked embarrassed, mumbling a half-hearted apology before walking away. The manager lingered, offering me complimentary dessert as an apology for the misunderstanding. I appreciated that. As she left, I turned back to my camera, the tension from earlier slowly fading. Well, that was quite the twist, I said with a laugh. Well, let's get back to the food, shall we? With the misunderstanding resolved, I refocused on my review, determined not to let the incident overshadow the experience. But just as I was signing off the dessert segment, the waiter reappeared. This time, his face was more serious than angry. What's the problem now? I asked. Our system doesn't show any record of your payment for the meal, but I paid right before I ordered, at the counter. I replied, confused. Can you show me the receipt then? Feeling a bit frustrated, I reached into my pocket where I had put the receipt. Sure, here it is, I said, pulling it out and handed it to him. Instead of just looking at it, the waiter suddenly snatched the receipt from my hand and, to my utter disbelief, tore it into pieces. Now you have no proof of payment. I yelled. Why did you do that? This was turning into a nightmare. First a plate accusation and now this? It felt like I was being targeted for some reason. The waiter then said, no receipt, no proof. You could be trying to dine and dash. I was astounded by the accusation. I did not dine and dash. This is a fast food restaurant, you pay beforehand anyways. And I paid for my meal. I insisted. This is ridiculous, I said, turning to my camera. Can you believe this? First a plate and now he's accusing me of not paying? If you don't have proof of payment, I'll have to call the police. Call them then. This is just unjust. I did nothing wrong. The waiter hesitated for a moment, then walked away, presumably to make the call. Turning back to the camera, I tried to keep a calm demeanor. Well, folks, this is turning out to be quite an eventful review. I assure you, I paid for my meal, but now it seems we have to deal with this. Eventually, I decided it was best to leave and deal with the situation outside. Gathering my things and my camera, I headed towards the exit. The waiter, noticing my movement, quickly followed me out. Where do you think you're going? I'm leaving. This is ridiculous and I don't have to put up with it. As I walked away, I heard his footsteps quicken behind me. You're not going anywhere until this is sorted out, he shouted, reaching out and grabbing my arm. I jerked my arm and turned to face him. Don't touch me, I warned him. That's when things escalated beyond my control. In a sudden fit of anger, the waiter swiped at the plate in my hand, sending it crashing to the ground. This is insane, I yelled back at him. You're not going to get away with this. I couldn't believe what was happening. This had gone far beyond a simple misunderstanding or a customer service issue. It was now a full-blown confrontation in the middle of a public parking lot. I reached for my phone, intending to call the police myself. I am calling the police. This is assault. But before I could complete the call, the waiter charged at me with his fist aimed directly in my face. Instinctively, I sidestepped, avoiding his swing. Stop! What are you doing? I shouted, trying to reason with him, but it was clear he was beyond reasoning. I knew I had to defend myself. As he threw another punch, I managed to sidestep again and grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back in a defensive maneuver. Stop it! You're hurting me! He cried out in a scream. I tried to hold him there, hoping to prevent any further attacks. Just stop and think about what you're doing. But the waiter wasn't giving up. He struggled fiercely, trying to break free from my grip. In the midst of his violent twisting, there was a sudden, sickening snap. His arm had broken. Oh no. The waiter let out a loud scream. I released him immediately, stepping back in shock. I had only intended to defend myself, not to cause him harm. He fell to the ground, clutching his arm. I stood there frozen, not sure what to do next. It was then that I heard the sound of sirens approaching. Someone must have called the police. Part of me felt relieved that help was on the way, but another part of me was worried about how it would look. A waiter with a broken arm and me standing over him. It was a scene that could easily be misinterpreted. As the police cars pulled up, I tried to collect my thoughts. I needed to explain what happened to make them understand that it was self-defense. But as the officers stepped out of their cars and approached us, I realized that this was going to be a lot more complicated than I had thought. Put your hands where I can see them. One of the officers yelled. I complied immediately, but before I could explain, one of them stepped forward and handcuffed me. Wait, I was just defending myself, I protested. As I was led towards the police car, the reality of the situation was sinking in. I was being arrested. Then suddenly I heard voices from the crowd. He was being attacked. Someone said, yeah, the waiter went crazy. Another added, sir, you have the right to remain silent. The officer began, reciting the Miranda rights as we approached the car. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. Yet here I was being treated like a criminal. Please, you've got to listen to me. It wasn't what it looks like. Save it for the station. Upon arrival at the station, the police officers guided me inside. I was taken to a small room for questioning. Let's start from the beginning. One of the officers said, sitting across from me with a notepad in hand. I took a deep breath and began recounting the events from the moment I entered the restaurant with my camera to the altercation in the parking lot. I emphasized that I was acting in self-defense and that everything was recorded. While I spoke, another officer entered the room. We have several witnesses from the restaurant here. The officer left the room, and shortly after, a few of the witnesses were brought in to give their statements. One woman, who had been sitting near the window, spoke up. I saw the whole thing. The waiter was being unreasonable. He tore up the man's receipt and then followed him outside. It looked like he had a beef with him because he started attacking him out of nowhere. Another witness, a middle-aged man who had been at the counter, added, yeah, the guy was just trying to leave when the waiter lost it. He definitely wasn't trying to steal anything. After the witnesses had given their statements, the officer who had been questioning me stepped out of the room for a moment. When he returned, he said, after reviewing the footage and considering the witness statements, it's clear you were acting in self-defense. We're sorry for the inconvenience, and you're free to go. The next day, I contacted a lawyer to discuss the situation. After explaining everything and showing him the footage, he was confident that we had a strong case. Not only had the waiter's actions been out of line, but the restaurant's handling of the situation had been grossly negligent. We can file a lawsuit against the restaurant for the emotional and physical distress you've experienced. The footage is key evidence. It clearly shows you were acting in self-defense and that the waiter was the aggressor. I agreed. And as the legal proceedings began, the incident started gaining public attention. My video, edited to include the events leading up to the altercation, went viral. The response was overwhelming. People were outraged by the waiter's behavior and sympathetic towards my situation. During the trial, the footage from my camera was presented as evidence, and after weeks of hearings and deliberations, the verdict was in my favor. The restaurant was found liable, and I was awarded a significant settlement for the distress and harm caused by the incident. The waiter, meanwhile, was let go from his job and faced legal repercussions for his actions. The restaurant, on the other hand, faced a significant backlash. Their reputation suffered as the public condemned their handling of the situation and the behavior of their former employee. They issued a public apology, stating they had implemented new training programs for their staff to ensure such an incident would never happen again. The incident was now behind me. The story of the unreviewed meal had closed, but its lessons would absolutely remain. Quick pause, folks. If you're enjoying these stories, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to K-Korner, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. It really helps the channel grow, and we love hearing from you. Plus, who knows, your comment might just inspire our next video. Alright, back to our stories. In fact, I have never worked at any Walgreens. So this was some 10 years ago, and while the conversation is paraphrased, I remember it like it was yesterday. So background. At the time, I was working grave and swing at a casino players host in Reno, Nevada. For those who don't know what this job is, we take care of the high rollers, make sure they get comps, dining, and hotel reservations, get invited to tournaments, limo rides, you name it. I wore a nice black blazer with a name tag, slacks, comfortable but professional shoes, hair and makeup done. The days I worked swing, I was off at 3 a.m. But after waiting for the bus and a ride home, I would make it to my place at about 5 a.m. Directly across the street from my home was a Walgreens. I stopped a lot of mornings to grab a protein shake, pick up prescriptions and so on. But on Wednesday mornings, they put out a lot of clearance items. You could snag small appliances dirt cheap. So I was always there on Wednesday stocking up on Christmas and birthday presents and so on. The employees and manager knew me by sight, and some by name. I was usually a zombie after work. I think like most people. And this Wednesday was no different. I was looking over the latest selection trying to decide if I needed a new coffee maker or just wanted one because it was clearanced for like $5. A woman was next to me speaking Tagalog into her phone. I don't speak it, but Reno has a pretty large Filipino community, so I could at least recognize it. Her language is not important to the story, it just struck me how odd the little things we remember are. She finished her conversation and looked at me. Can I get a discount on this? I don't remember what this was, some small appliances. The box is smashed up. No idea, I told her, but I would ask to plug it in to test it before I buy it if the box is damaged. I have no idea if anyone can actually do that, but it seemed reasonable to me. Why would you sell something that doesn't work? She demanded. I had no idea at this point she thought I worked there. I thought she was making conversation. In my defense, I was half asleep and just wanted a good deal on a damn stick blender. Oh, I told her I absolutely wouldn't sell it. But I am not in the business of selling things anyway. Oh, so you're too good and important to sell things? That is just for the low employees? I finally looked at her. Until then, I was pretty focused on staying awake. I could see that she was getting angry. It dawned on me that I still had my name tag on. I slipped it off. They are the kind with magnets, not pins, and I stuck it in my pocket. Oh, sorry, I forgot to take this off. I don't actually. I started to say I don't work here, but she was having none of that. Oh, you think you're too good to help me? Just because I'm Filipina? She may have said Filipino. I confess, I don't know which is correct and going only for memory. My money is good. You? She said something in Tagalog that did not sound flattering. You think you can trick me by taking off your name tag? I just sighed at this point. I don't want your money. I don't work here. I'm shopping just like you. Please, leave me alone. She ignored everything I just said except for, oh, you won't be getting my money because you need to give me this for free for not helping me. Ma'am, I can't give you that. I really don't work here. If you take it without paying, this is stealing. Oh, now you think I'm poor and a thief? What the hell? Where did poor come from? I want to talk to the manager of this whole store. Lady, I wish you would talk to anyone but me. I didn't swear because I was angry, I just have a potty mouse. She stomped off her heels making little tick 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 sounds on a linoleum. I decided I did need another coffee maker, and that stick blender. As I was putting both in my cart, I heard tick 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 tick. Great, she's back. But she's not alone. Tom, the store manager, was with her. There she is, the woman shrieked. She called me a poor thief and said a swear at me. I want you to fire her and make her poor. Weird obsession with poverty. Tom looked at me confused. What is happening? I grinned and held up my coffee maker. Shopping. Tom was even more confused. But why are you insulting her and swearing? She thinks I work here and wants me to let her steal an appliance. Okay, I know a bit of an exaggeration, but she started it. This was the moment that her medication stopped working. In a very loud mix of English and Tagalog, she shrieked out our entire interaction. Surprisingly, she told it correctly too, except that I didn't put my name tag away to trick her. Tom was done at this point. He just looked at me and said, "You're fired." The woman grinned maliciously at me, grabbed her smashed up box and stormed off with Tom as I shrugged and made my way over to the allergy medication, or some other area of the store. I don't 100% remember, but I have terrible allergies, so that seems likely. At the register, Tom asked me what really happened and I told him everything, including how I told her I wished she'd talk to anyone but me. Tom laughed and told me that I was still fired. Yay! I grinned and said, "Do I get a severance package?" Tom laughed harder. "To be fair, you did swear at her. Plus, you don't actually work here, so no severance package." That's it. I shopped there for many years before I moved. I never saw her again, so I'm sure she went on content with getting me fired and making me poor. And that's a wrap for today's episode of K-Korner. I hope these stories left you with a smile, a bit of surprise, or at least something to think about. Remember, every day is a new story waiting to happen, and you never know when you might become the main character in one. If you've got a story of your own, we'd love to hear it in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to keep spreading kindness and laughter wherever you go. Until next time, this is Crown, signing off.